Hello. Let's talk about how to effectively integrate quotes into our research paper and learn how to use other people's evidence to support our own claims. So first thing we want to start with is remembering the intentions and the goal of our paper itself. For our research paper, the goal of including evidence is to support the understanding of each side of a point of contention. So I first have to create an argument explaining what that side believes. I'm going to support that with research sources. Always my research should back up my argument, should explain or give evidence of my claim. It should not just summarize what the article said. The goal is to be proof or evidence to defend what you're saying. So we should not just have long pieces of articles posted in our paper, because in that case, I'm just summarizing somebody else's ideas. I'm not actually building my own points. So once we know that we're searching for evidence to support our argument, what are some ways to do that effectively in a research paper? So first thing, when we're thinking about doing a research paper, we need to have limited quote length. They should never be longer than 2 lines typed at a time. So when we're thinking about that in a paragraph, it should be one of the smaller sections of our paragraphs. We should have our claim or our topic sentence, which is arguing the point, quotes to prove that, and then explanation on the backside of the quote, really explaining why that specific piece of evidence builds our claim and our argument. So limiting our quote helps us to focus to just the important information and also removes any of that padding that takes away from our actual argument. Another way to think about a tool to do this and to trim information is to, instead of pulling a really long, dense quote, taking that information and putting it in your own words, called paraphrasing, or summarizing those longer pieces so we can just take away the key points. When we do that, we still need to cite a paraphrase or summary of an article because we did not come up with that information. But I also make it more readily accessible and easy for someone to read. So skill 1, limit our sources, the length of them, to just less than 2 lines per citation. Another thing to do, instead of giving these long signal phrases that take away from the really content of your essay, we want to instead put citations. So an in-text citation is that proof of where we got that piece of data, the piece of information, whatever your evidence is. And so I don't also need to go through and explain what the source was. So instead of describing that my source is from the essay of Indian geography published by blah, 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 I just need to have the citation. So let's look at this quote together and see how it's overly long and the signal phrase actually takes away from the intention of the quote itself. So in the essay Studies of Indian Geography published by Jennifer Mitchell in the American Journal of Geography, the author explains that many features of Indian topography are unique to the region. Mitchell 321. So if we're looking at what's unnecessary here, in the essay, well, that's the title of an essay. I don't need that. I also don't really care about what the title is. It's not giving me any extra information. Published by Jennifer Mitchell, that information is on the citation itself. In the American Journal of Geography, that information I could find in the works cited page if I was interested in. The author explains that. The only thing I really need from this is Indian topography is unique. I'm not even learning what specific topography is unique. I'm not learning any specific things. This information is filler. So if I were to look at this in your essay, not only is it not explaining anything of importance, it's taking away from the purpose and the clarity because you're packing in stuff that doesn't matter. So when I look at this, if I were going to revise it, I just want to take out the things that are important. So significantly, Indian topography is unique within its region. That is much easier for me to understand and take away the point than this massive paragraph. Again, if I want to know the name of the essay, if I want to go back to the article itself, I can go to the works cited page and find that. This citation gets rid of all the jumbled mess. Once in an essay, this might not seem like a big issue to you, but when you're citing 5, 10 sources, this is a significant amount of writing that is for no reason at all. And I don't even know the purpose or the tie back to the argument when you're doing it this way. Other things to say, don't use the word quote. Instead, talk about what specific information is in that quote or piece of evidence. So instead of this quote shows or in the quote blank, talk about the statistic, talk about the testimony, think about the study. What aspect of that evidence is significant when we're starting to think about what you're going to say? When you say quote, you're breaking down the guise that you collected all this research and made it all flow together. Quote disrupts our ability to think about what information you're using. It doesn't have any specific points and therefore is making us more distracted. When you say this shows, this quote shows, or in this quote, it actually makes it wordier and harder to understand your essay. Also, when you're having quotes in a sentence, they should sound like your own words. If I were to read an essay out loud, it should be so smooth when I'm reading the quote that I'm not aware of when the quote begins or when it ends if read out loud. A couple things to think about that means everything should be written in present tense. If I need to adapt the citation to meet that, that is okay. I want to edit that to the present tense to match the rest of the essay. Those little minor changes are allowed. And also you might need to specify the pronoun. So if the he or she or them in the quote doesn't make sense when you take it out of the context of the essay, put in brackets what that person's name is to give context to the reader outside of the document. Let's look at some examples of this. So in the quote, the study showed that 25% of us handed in late work. It shows that work was often handed in late. So first, let's look for the inconsistent verb tense. In the quote, the study showed that, showed is past tense. The study shows that 25% of us handed in late work. It shows that late work was often handed in late. So I have showed and shows, which don't have the same verb tense, and I want to make sure they're both in present tense. Also, there's inappropriate pronoun. Who is us? I have no clue. I don't hand my work in late. I do everything on time. So that's not actually a clear indicator of who it is. So I might replace that with someone specific to the essay himself. The intro phrase also is confusing. In the quote, what is the purpose of that? And then the follow-up itself is lame. You're literally repeating what is being said. It shows that work was often handed in late. So what? Instead of repeating the quotation or the percent itself, I want you to give me the significance of it. Why does that 25% matter? What is the purpose of that, and how does it connect to the overall argument? When I just repeat, shows that work was often handed in late, that doesn't give me any context, and it doesn't build part of an argument. So those are all the reasons it's wrong. Let's look at how to fix it. So instead of in the quote, we talk about the study reveals that 25%, instead of us, of Round Rock High School students hand in late work. And then I'm citing the source. I'm going to follow up with something more significant and clear. This statistic is a troubling revelation, considering that most of those students are college bound. If 25% of students hand in late work and college doesn't take late work, that's a big concern. I'm not just saying that this is a statistic that's often, it's showing why that statistic matters, and it's connecting back to an argument, not just a factual data point. This is our goal when we're thinking about integrating quotes, to develop it, to make it clear, and connect back to an overall argument. When we're thinking about this, there's a really clear path for me into making sure my quotes are well integrated and that I'm defending them well. So first, I need to have an introductory phrase. That's something that's going to lead into my quote or to introduce it so that when I go to read it, it's smooth and transitions well. The study reveals that 25% of Round Rock High School students handed in late work. I'm choosing just a portion of the quote, and I'm going to adapt it as needed to fit correctly within the context of my sentence. If I'm making any adaptations that help make it more specific, like replacing us, and instead I want to say Round Rock High School students, you put those in brackets because I'm making this change right here. However, I'm making it for clarity, not to change the content of it. You are welcome to make adaptations that way. And also, if you're making a verb change issue, that's the same way you do it, by putting in brackets how you change the word. Then the key is that follow-up sentence. It's explaining the significance of the quote, not just repeating what it's saying. If this is done well, I know how your quote connects to your claim perfectly. What is the overall argument? So this statistic is a troubling revelation, considering that most of those students are college bound. If people aren't turning in their work, it's a problem for college. Very clear connection to an overall argument. 3 things you got to think about. Introduce the quote, pick short selectively, revise it as needed to fit into the key clarity, verb tense, and to fit smoothly in the sentence. And then follow up with the reason that matters. Your goal is not to talk down to your audience, because it should be written for other well-informed, educated people, but it should be to explain clearly why that matters. What is the why? What is the significance of that quote? Do not leave any of those parts out. You have to have them for it to flow naturally and for this to be a purposeful use of research instead of just summarizing the articles you read. When we are doing research or any type of evidence-based writing, we want our follow-up and that significance of the quote to be the longest part of our paragraph. I'm using that information to support my argument and to explain it. So the quote is not as important as my explanation and my follow-up of the evidence. This part right here, the most important and should be the most substantial part of your essay. Other reminders as we're moving forward on this paper. Your goal is to explain an issue unbiasedly and explore 2 sides of a point of contention. That means that when you're using your research, you're doing so in an unbiased way that makes clear what the points are. You are presenting their approach to an issue. And so each claim for each section should be supporting what their rationale is. Why does this side believe it is the correct answer? Why is this the right approach to the point of contention? Your research is used to support that argument, not in place of that argument. And using information without citing it is plagiarism. Be very careful, especially if you paraphrase, that you are citing all of your sources so that you don't get flagged for plagiarism. Intentional or not, plagiarism is plagiarism. So, moving forward for the rest of class, you are going to go back to your research paper assignment sheet, and I want you to review those key points as we did with the last paper. Go through and highlight or underline the key things you need to do, both the content, what you were supposed to write, and also the skills required, how you were supposed to write. Then I want you to look at your annotations from your annotated bibliography. If you did them correctly and met all the points, they should be 250 words for each of the sections in your essay so far. 1 for the pro, 1 for the cons, 1 for the conclusion. That means if you've kept up with all the pace, you have written over half of your paper right now. So take a deep breath. You've done a lot of work already. From there, I want you to look at your notes that you took on your journal articles and take what you've already written from your annotations. Using what you have, your notes and your annotations, look back at what is required of you and start to outline your essay. Here's your last reminder. Section doesn't mean you have to have 1 paragraph within them. If you have to have 500 words per section, 500 words about 2 pages, there should not be a whole section that's just a whole paragraph that's 2 pages. Sections can be broken up into smaller arguments and regular topic sentences with paragraphs. Don't forget that. My eyes will bleed if I have to read, a 6-page essay that is, 4 paragraphs. When you're done with that, you're going to take that information from your notes and you're going to create a physical outline and submit it to Schoology. From your outline, you will also begin to write your introductory paragraph. You may use anything that you posted from the discussion board for your introductory paragraph if it's still appropriate. But given that you've made your topic much narrower and you found much more information since we did preliminary research part 1, it's likely it will need to be adjusted. Your outline and your introductory paragraph will be submitted to Schoology on the same page before next class. So A days, that's Wednesday 10/26 at 9 a.m. and B days, that's 10/27 at 9 a.m. I'm going to be out away from my email. So if you have any questions while I'm away, write them down and come to see me Tuesday morning for tutorials. I'll be here at 8:25 in the morning. If you have a question immediately, you may ask Ms. Cunningham. She's in room 1519. She's the other dual credit teacher. Or you can problem solve with your classmates. Y'all are smart. Y'all are very capable. Remember all the resources you already have and don't forget to use them. Have a wonderful time. Good luck. Godspeed. I'll see you on the other side.